That's right, boys. We finally got a Titan build. Now, as we wait on the new Titan exotics to be re-enabled, we've been looking for other Arc 3.0 builds for you to sink your teeth into. And this one right here, this one's a good one. It truly is the Lord of Thunder. By the way, down below is a dim link too, if you want to just slot in this build. But let me walk you through how this build works. For this striker build, you can honestly use whatever super you want, although Thunder Crash kind of fits the fantasy more. Literally got thunder in the name. And even without Yeet, it still does pretty decent damage. And there are times you can use it as like a means of escape as well. For abilities, we're going to be using the new Thruster class ability because of its fast 30-second cooldown. And of course, the maneuverability it gives you is really, really good. You could dip and dodge around enemies, and even inside of PvE, it's really nice. And for this particular build, it's fantastic for what we're trying to activate. The gameplay you're seeing is of a legendary campaign mission where we're actually dodging Lucent Brood supers, Abomination stops, you name it. Maneuverability is key to this build. Now, for your melee ability, you can use technically whatever you want. We're going with Seismic Strike because it's easy to use, it's quick, and of course it blinds enemies. Granted, our Thunderclap melee does pretty decent damage, but you do have to charge it up to get that full damage. I do like Seismic Strike though, especially for that blinding, and again, that area that it blinds enemies in is further increased when you're amplified. This helps our survivability as we're able to get in quick, hit the shoulder charge, and then bounce while enemies are blinded. We're also going to be using Storm Grenades, which I know everyone's using Pulse Grenades, especially inside of PvE, but I'm telling you, Storm Grenades here, guys, was the original idea for this build, and it's really what everything's focused around. You're gonna have constant uptime of all of your abilities, and your Storm Grenades, especially on Titan, do massive amounts of damage. Now for your aspects, you're gonna want Touch of Thunder, which gives your Storm Grenades enhanced functionality, actually making it a roaming thundercloud that tracks nearby targets and fires bolts of lightning beneath it. We'll also be using Knockouts because it gives us 2 more fragment slots, and it makes getting amplified a bit easier via melee kills. It simultaneously gives us health regeneration on melees too. Now for our fragments, we're gonna be using Spark of Magnitude, which makes our Storm Grenades last longer. Sparks of Amplitude, which generates orbs of power when you get rapid kills while amplified. Sparks of Resistance, which gives you increased damage resist while surrounded. And Spark of Shock, which makes our Storm Grenades that much better as they'll be jolting targets. Now the weapons of choice that we're going to be utilizing with this build is none other than Thunderlord. Thunderlord's intrinsic traits, you've got Rain Havoc, which says that final blows of this weapon generate stunning lightning strikes from above, and particularly strong against overload champions this season. And of course, the trait Lightning Rounds, where the weapon fires faster and more accurately the longer the trigger is held. Continuous damage creates stunning lightning strikes, so not only do kills with the Thunderlord generate lightning strikes, but so does continuous damage, making it a great pick for both add clear and boss DPS. Tag on the ability to stun overload champions, and the fact that machine guns got a buff last season, this is actually a great pick for both add clear and boss DPS. Not the best for boss DPS, but better, and actually an exotic that I would use in Master and Grandmaster content, especially this season. On top of that, Thunderlord just got a catalyst that gives it the perk Return Stroke. Giggity. Causing a lightning strike with this weapon partially reloads the mag, enabling you to keep firing and doing even more damage against those high health enemies. Now, Thunderlord isn't needed here, but considering we're leaning into this and the Thunder fantasy, we had to use it. We were able to tank multiple legendary campaign missions, 1500 power, with nothing but our abilities. Not even using a super, just the Seismic Strike, Thruster, and Storm Grenade, combined with our exotic armor piece, which is of course Heart of Inmost Light. Now, this is always a top pick for ability regen builds, so it's no surprise here that in Arc 3.0, Heart of Inmost is a go-to option. It comes with the perk Overflowing Light, which states that using an ability, grenade, melee, or barricade, empowers the other 2 abilities. Empower means abilities have faster regen, melees and grenades do more damage, and barricades have more hit points. Now, the perk does specifically say barricades, but it also works for the new Thruster ability as well. Obviously, the ability itself doesn't get any bonuses besides a faster regen though, but it still does get that faster regeneration, as well as providing power to your melee and grenade when needed. Now, let's go over the armor mods. Then we'll dive into how this build actually functions. For the helmets, you'll want Solar Affinity. Slide in 2 Ashes Asset mods, which grant bonus super energy on grenade kills, as well as Elemental Ordnance, which will spawn an Arc Well on grenade kills. Guys, you'll be amazed how fast you get your super back with Ashes Assets. On the gloves, you're going to want Void Affinity. We're taking advantage of double bolstering detonation mods, which grant class ability energy when causing damage with a grenade, reducing our 30-second thruster cooldown even more. Of course, if you're bringing this build into Master or GM content, you'll want to replace one of those with a champion mod. Lastly, we've got another Elemental Ordnance mod to slot on that final slot. Now, we've got Heart of Inmost Light as our chest piece. Arc Affinity, because we're going to be using Seeking Wells here, so we don't have to do as much work tracking down the many Arc Wells this build generates. We did originally have another Elemental Ordnance mod here, but at the end of the day, you really don't need any more Arc Wells. 3 is already more than enough. To increase survivability, on top of the 100% 400 resilience. You should be always rocking, even though it is bugged right now. Hopefully it gets fixed soon. We've got thermal shock plating, which you can either double stack or you can slot it with like a melee damage resist mod if you happen to be in close quarters. For your boots, you want solar affinity. Double recuperation mods is really beneficial here, which will replenish health when you pick up an orb. And again, we're going to be creating orbs with this build, a lot of them. So this again is helping our survivability. We have multiple times while running these legendary missions where these orbs were saving our life. We're also making use of bountiful wells, which makes all these elemental ordnance mods stack, meaning now we're going to be generating 3 arc wells when our grenade gets a kill. And for our class item, you'll once again want solar affinity, 1 bomber mod, which reduces our grenade cooldown when using our class ability, aka our thruster, and the artifact mod lightning strikes twice, which states that after throwing an arc grenade, you get increased grenade recharge for a short time. Arc final blows extends the duration of this benefit, and this build does work without this mod. But if you have unlocked that final column, guys, try lightning strikes twice. In our testing, this artifact mod and that recharge rate is almost always procced with this build because you're always getting arc final blows to extend that duration. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what's going on here, the gameplay loop. Because we're using Heart of Inmost Light and we're focusing on grenades as well as grenade regen and grenade damage, we'll want to be using our storm grenades last. Because Heart of Inmost Light empowers the 2 abilities not used when you use an ability. So if you use thruster, then your grenade and melee become empowered, giving them more damage and faster regen. Then right after, you get a melee kill or a melee hit. Again, you don't technically need to get a kill with Seismic Strike, you just need to hit an enemy. This will empower your thruster and your grenade, meaning your grenade now has empower ×2. At empower ×2, our storm grenade will regenerate 8 times faster. All this happens when you throw your grenade. First, it will last a long time thanks to Sparks of Magnitude. Second, it will jolt targets because of Spark of Shock. Third, it'll have 35% increase in damage from empower ×2. Fourth, it'll track enemies and send down strikes of lightning because of Touch of Thunder. 5, it will generate 3 seeking arc elemental wells from elemental ordnance and bountiful wells. And 6, you'll get even more grenade regeneration because of lightning strikes twice, which will proc when you throw your grenade. Now, this grenade regen stacks with Heart of Inmost Light's ability to regen from empower, and the lightning strikes twice ability regen duration will keep extending because your storm grenade will travel around the battlefield getting more and more arc kills. With your buffed grenade regen and the generated arc elemental wells, you'll get your grenade right back. Before that though, you'll already have your thruster and your melee charge back, meaning you can just keep chaining abilities together. Not only using your abilities to help regen the others because of Heart of Inmost Light, but we also have bolstering demolition and bomber mods to increase that effect. Throwing your grenade will grant you class ability energy and vice versa, granting your abilities back lightning fast, making sure that no matter what ability you're using, you're always empowering and increasing the regeneration of the other 2. Now, before we move on, let's look at some damage numbers. The storm grenade with Spark of Shock, Spark of Magnitude, and Touch of Thunder, meaning it jolts, lasts longer, and tracks targets, has an extra lightning strike, dealing just over 200,000 damage to Carl, and it tracks him. So no matter how much he tries to jump and run, it keeps hitting him. The initial blast of the grenade only does 19,000 damage, and then there's the jolt damage and the lightning strikes that deal around 180,000 damage over time. When we add on the empower ×2 buff from Heart of Inmost Light, that damage goes up 35%, meaning each storm grenade is hitting for around 270,000 damage. And you get this storm grenade back before your first one has even ended. We took down a Scorn boss at the end of the Ghost Legendary campaign mission solo, 15 under power with only 3.5 grenades. It's nuts. For reference, pulse grenades with all those fragments and aspects deal around 110,000 damage total. With Heart of Inmost Light and power ×2, that damage scales up to just under 150,000. So sure, pulses will give you ionic traces over time, but we don't need that ability regeneration. Heart of Inmost Light paired with lightning strikes twice, bomber, and bolster and detonation, and 3 arc wells is more than enough to get our abilities back quickly. Personally, I like the extra 120,000 damage and the tracking that we get from storm grenades. Not only that, but you'll be getting your super back very fast as long as you are tying in melee kills somewhere in your chain of ability spam, which you'll be doing anyway to take advantage of Heart of Inmost Light. The knockout aspect makes you amplified on melee kills, as well as starting that health regeneration, and it blinds because we're using Seismic Strike. We also have Spark of Amplitude, which will generate an orb when you rapidly defeat targets while amplified, which you'll be doing with every storm grenade that you throw. This gives even more reason to use your grenades last. Not only will it get empower ×2, but you'll be amplified. So those grenade kills will generate orbs, which gives you super. Now, what else is going to give us super? Obviously, access to assets. And we have 2 of them slotted on our helmets. These give you super energy on grenade kills, and you can see the insane synergy here. You use your thruster and melee abilities to empower your grenade, and your grenade has increased regeneration and damage. It also is generating orbs and super energy, and those orbs are giving you super energy and health because of the double recuperation mods. And as you repeat this cycle, you'll inevitably get Empower ×2 on your melee and thruster. Sometimes you'll even have Empower ×2 on everything because of how fast you're using your abilities. Empower ×2 on your melee gives it 20% increased damage and it regens 8 times faster. And Empower ×2 on your class ability makes it regenerate 3 times as fast. So you're looking at max a 10-second cooldown on your thruster, but more realistically, it'll be somewhere around 5 or less because of the arc wells and mods that we have. This build is insane and a blast to play. The combination of Heart of Inmost Light and Arc 3.0 and the improved storm grenades, especially on the Titan class, is fantastic. And of course, leaning into that Thunderlord fantasy is even made better with our Thunderlord exotic, which can stun champions. Granted, if you don't want to use Thunderlord, you can always slot in Surge Detonators into your class item, which storm grenades will then stun overload champions. And we see how much overload champions like to move on us, which having a tracking grenade really helps here. So guys, try out this build for yourself. And again, big shout out to Jarrett. This is one of his homegrown builds. The guy literally comes up with the best ones I've ever played with. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.